Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reeder. Today's guest is Ramya Julian, and she is an author and illustrator of picture books. She also has some other projects going on, but I just love these beautiful picture books. The first one I read was Janaki Ammal.
Ammal. Yeah,
Thank
Janaki
you.
Ammal. Yes.
Ramya, tell us about how you got into writing, and also these images are just gorgeous. I've got to show some of
Uh,
these. How did you get into this?
Thank you, Karen. It's lovely to be here. Well, I've always wanted to be an author illustrator. And ever since when I was 6 years old, my father first told me what an author is, and something just sort of clicked. And I realized that that is what I want to be. And that's how I got into it. I've always been writing. And yeah, I think I wrote my first story when I was six, The
Nice.
Bad Witch, and which was horribly misspelled.
Oh,
And
all right.
that's how, yeah,
That
that's
makes
how
sense
I
then,
got
right?
into writing. Yes. And these picture books, I started writing them for my daughters during COVID. Actually, my daughters are 4 and 7 now.
Okay.
And during the lockdown, we used to read a lot. And my daughters and my older daughter, she was 4 then, and she was telling me that she wanted to be a princess.
Okay.
And um, I wanted her to aspire to be something a little different
Right.
and more useful, shall I
Okay.
say?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Right. Talk about some other options out there.
yes. So then we started talking about Marie Curie and Mary
Oh,
Seacole and this Indian activist doctor, Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy, and people like that. And then I wrote these books. And what I loved was after I started reading them to her and we started talking about these real people, she
yes.
said she wanted to be a scientist. So that
So,
sort of inspired me to write about more women for her, for them actually. And that's how it
yes.
started. Yes.
Oh, I love that it was initially for your daughters. That is so cool and to
Yeah.
inspire them. And then you've also got a book about Gandhi, Nelson Mandela,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Harriet
And
Tubman. And so
yeah.
I was just thrilled to see all of these amazing women that you've written about who have these different talents. And so in the US in March, it is Women's History Month. And I thought, how perfect. We've got to have Ramya on and talk about some of these inspiring women that she
Thank you.
writes about. And so, of all of them, the only one I had heard of was Harriet Tubman. And so let's talk about the first one that I read was the Janaki Ammal. And so tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about who she is and why you wanted to write a picture book about her.
Well, Janaki Ammal, her story was very interesting because she was born sometime in the early 20th century. And she had two things that were going terribly against her. One was her caste, in India with the caste system. She was actually from the suppressed caste,
Okay.
and she was a woman. So I found it very inspiring that despite being a woman of the suppressed caste, how much she achieved, and she chose not to marry, and she preferred to study. She wanted to study botany, and her family encouraged her,
That's
which I
awesome.
thought was very, yeah, that was
Yeah, especially
awesome.
that they would support her. And this is what, in the 40s?
No, even earlier. She was born in the first decade of the 20th century.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah, yeah. So her family was incredibly supportive.
That's
And they were actually 19 siblings.
oh
A
gosh,
big
wow.
family. Yes, her mother must have been superwoman.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so and yes, she chose to study botany and her family encouraged her. And her experience was such that in many conferences she was often the only woman. And she's written a lot of journals and letters, and she's mentioned how that even her most well-researched argument was
Right,
considered inferior to a man's just very casual remark saying, oh, this study is better. And they would just do that study, though she had researched so much
right.
to back her arguments. But even so, she never gave up.
That's
And
amazing. How
she
inspiring.
yeah. And there's actually a very vivid account of her. She was in the UK during the World War II.
Yeah.
And when London was bombed,
Hmm.
she would just hide under her bed.
Mhm.
during the bombing. And once the bombing ended, she would just resume her work, like no sweat.
Oh, gotta
And
keep going now.
yeah, yes, all in a day's work. So
Yeah, oh my
yeah,
gosh.
I
Right.
really
And
liked
here
how
we would
practical.
need to like overcome just like our emotions after that to continue working.
Yeah, yeah, and she was just so driven and passionate, and she was an eco-feminist. I thought that was amazing
Yeah,
because I don't think the term would have been very common in the
right?
40s and 50s.
Yeah.
But she was very vocal about protecting India's ecology, and there's this place called the Silent Valley in Kerala,
Okay.
and she was very strong about preventing industries from taking over
Right.
the Silent Valley, and she succeeded. So yeah, the story was amazing.
So, and I love that you take this inspirational, just amazing, and something that might just feel overwhelming to a child, right? But you put it
Yeah,
into rhyme, right? And then
yeah.
you make these beautiful images and you make it relatable and inspiring that
Thank
a
you.
child can just grasp onto it and love it and find it as a source of motivation.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I think it's just nice for children to read about real heroes,
Yes.
and and I hope that they find that same spark within themselves.
Yes.
Children are just so amazing, and I do school visits, and when I speak to them, I just feel like there's so much potential within them, and I just hope that I can help them find it.
That's so
So yeah.
wonderful. So, and then do you know, I've heard of Ada Lovelace, and as soon as you say it, I bet I'm going to be like, oh, of course. But tell me, Ada Lovelace, I can't think of what she does right now.
She was actually the world's first computer programmer. That's
Oh,
what Ada is known
okay.
for.
All right.
Yes.
Tell us more about it.
And she was actually there's this poet, Lord Byron. She is his child.
Oh, okay.
And if you just read about Ada's biography, you would assume she had everything because her father was this famous poet. They're very wealthy,
Right.
and but but she actually had an incredibly difficult childhood because her parents separated,
Okay.
and before she was a year old, and her mother actually held her responsible for it. Like
Oh,
she just left the child with her grandmother, and she literally referred to the child as it in her
oh,
letters, which
would
was,
she?
yeah, yeah. So and Ada actually had a lot of health issues. She
Oh,
had severe measles, and because of that, she couldn't walk for a year.
oh, wow.
And yeah, and she had terrible headaches that affected her vision.
Okay.
But so through it all, what she really loved was maths and music. So these were the things that she really enjoyed, and she loved reading.
Well,
And her mother wasn't so keen on Ada liking music because she was
mm.
very afraid that she would be crazy like her father. But she encouraged her passion for maths because
Okay.
she thought maths is sensible.
Right.
And
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, I think Ada was just she was innately a genius. So
Wow.
she sort of she used music to learn maths, and she used maths to learn music. So she connected the two.
Awesome. I love that
And
connection.
yeah, and then when she grew up, I think she met Charles Babbage through a mutual friend. He was the person who started designing computers. And so as soon as she saw his designs, something just clicked, and she realized that a computer could be used for a lot more than just calculation.
Yeah.
And that's how she started writing the first computer program. I think
Wow.
it was for Bernoulli's theorem. I could be wrong, but yeah,
Okay.
that's how it
Oh,
started.
that's so
Yeah.
cool. How inspiring and like so much
Yeah.
we have now because of that.
You
That's
know, it's amazing, isn't it? If you just listen to someone's story, the just their biography, the bare details, you would think that, oh, they must have had it easy, but
right.
Ada didn't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it gives you motivation because it's like, okay, look what they did. And this is all I'm
Yeah.
trying to do. So certainly I can do what I'm working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And it's not always what it seems, isn't it?
Right.
Someone's life from the
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah. And it helps us relate or have that compassion that we're like,
Mhm.
yeah. Like I just think,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, she's such a genius, but
Yeah.
look where she came
She
from and what
she had
trials she
she
had to
had
overcome to get there.
mm,
That's
That's
cool.
true. She had her odds to overcome. Yes.
Yes. Yes, wonderful. All right. So the last one I wanted to talk about, and I know I'm going to mess up the middle name. So Noor, can you say again?
Inayat
Inayat Khan. So
Khan,
tell
yes.
me about her. I love, I'm going to impose this on it because I can't even show you my phone, like that she's got the magnifying glass. She looks like a
Yeah,
detective there, you know, like
yeah,
she's looking at that. And tell me.
yeah. Well, Noor's story. So Noor, I happened to read an article about her. That's how I came across Noor's story. And I loved, she was actually a Sufi Muslim. And I loved how passionate she was about her beliefs. So she was a pacifist. But during the World War II, when she was when she came to know about Nazism and how Jews are being horribly mistreated,
Right.
she felt that being a pacifist at a time like that was wrong.
Okay.
So, but of course, she couldn't bring herself to fight or to kill. So, what she did was she and her older brother, no, she and her younger brother, she was the oldest.
Right.
They felt that they would rather put themselves in a position where their own lives would be at risk rather than where rather than being in a position where they'd be killing other people.
Okay.
So for that reason, she trained and she chose to be a wireless operator. She was actually the first female wireless operator,
Wow.
yeah, in occupied France. And and the awfully sad thing was that this role had a life expectancy of 3 weeks.
My
So
gosh.
people, yeah, so what a wireless operator did was they would receive messages from the spy network all
Okay.
across Europe, and they would in Morse code, and they would transmit it in Morse code back to Britain. And yeah, so it was, they had to literally be on the move all the time. But the radio equipment was really bulky, so it was hard to hide.
Oh my
But
gosh.
Noor was so amazing that she lasted for 5 months.
Wow.
And yeah, and she was a very quick thinker. She
Hmm.
was also a poet, a writer, and in fact her superior officers gave her a very degrading report. They said that she's not overly burdened with brains, but I think they're just being patriarchal and racist probably.
Jeez.
She was Indian, yeah. So but even those 5 months, she was caught only because someone betrayed her.
Oh my God.
And yeah, but she was really amazing with her disguises, with the radio equipment. She would hide it in twigs so that it looked like she was just carrying sticks
I think,
as firewood or
wow.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
and these
obviously,
people,
yeah, was doing something right to have been able to go that long.
yeah, because so they would have to keep changing their location every 24 hours or like even several times within the day, because the Morse code signals were quite easy to trace. So if she stayed in a place for too long, they would have found out that there's someone here who's sending messages. So yeah, I just loved that how brave she was. She
Yeah.
would rather risk her own life than kill someone else, and that's just
Yeah.
because of her beliefs as a Sufi Muslim. And that was just so touching. I mean, right until now, I cannot read about Noor without sort of tearing up, because
Yeah.
it's I think it's sort of the best of humanity, isn't it?
Yes,
Like
that's
on
beautiful.
one end, you have these people who have no compunction about being cruel or killing people just for
Right.
personal benefit, and then at the other end, there are people like this who would do anything to uh, preserve to save other people's lives. So yeah, I
Amazing.
love your story. Yes,
Yes, that is beautiful. And are all your books on Kindle Unlimited right now? Do you know? That's where I got.
yeah, they're all on Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
Yes,
Beautiful. So if
yeah.
you have KU, go check that out because that's where I read Ramya's first one that I
Oh,
I
thanks,
I, I think
Karen.
Nora's gonna need to be my second one to go and read because that is so
Yeah.
inspiring. I love it. And like I said, we've also got Harriet Tubman, Gandhi, and then Nelson Mandela, and then this one just called Women in STEM. And
Yeah, it's a compilation, yes, of four women: Marie Curie, Mary Seacole, Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy and Wang Zhedi. I just wanted a diverse selection. This was a book I
Yeah.
wrote for my children, so I wanted a diverse selection for them
Oh,
to read.
beautiful. So
Yeah.
yeah, how wonderful. These are such great tools to use for women's history or just anytime you want an inspiring, wonderful story to share with kids. Ramya's made it very accessible to them that it's, some of these topics are pretty intense that's going on in their life.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she's, maybe filtered some of that out for us, right, Ramya?
Yeah,
So that's
like
the
Noor's
kids.
story, I left out the part where she dies. I just
Yeah.
I just ended it saying she's so brave and, there are people who make the world a better place and something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So that
Yeah.
is awesome. These I'm going to include in the description below how you can find Ramya's books and all of her, contacts. If you've got any socials and things, to check these out down below. Ramya, do you know what I'd love to know? Who is your inspiration and why for these? Because you were doing these for your daughters, but also
Yeah.
like maybe as you were a girl or now as an adult, which one, and could be male or female, who's your inspiration?
Well, there are actually three authors
Okay,
who made
perfect.
me want to be a writer.
Okay.
The first was Enid Blyton because Enid Blyton's books were the first I read. I read The Naughtiest Girl, and that is when my parents told me who Enid Blyton is. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to be. I want
That's
to be an
me.
author like
Yeah,
Enid Blyton.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other two authors, Ella Malcott, who wrote
Okay.
Little Women,
Nice.
and Ella Montgomery, who wrote Anne of Green Gables. Both of these books are sort of they're still very special to me
Yeah.
because they're still my comfort reads.
Yes. And
I
like such a
still I
joy.
still
Like I hadn't read Anne of Green Gables in a few years and then I listened to it and I was like, oh, it's such a joy to like have somebody read this out
yeah,
loud to me. Oh,
kindred spirit, yes.
yes. Right.
They're still my comfort reads, and I just love them. They're so full of joy, and
Yes.
there's just they're so delightful the way they write. And Little Women is so heartwarming. So yeah,
Yeah.
these three women are my favorite authors
Oh,
right
wonderful.
until now. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, is that then, is that the book that you would recommend? Because I also like to ask you to
Oh
recommend.
yes, I would recommend Little Women, Anne of Green Gables, and Enid Blyton. I think is undergoing some editing to weed out uh, the unconscious biases of the author. But
Okay.
yeah, I would definitely recommend them. I give these books to my daughters to read. I mean, my daughter is a little young for Little Women and Anne of Green Gables, but
Right.
Enid Blyton, yes, she reads.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it. These such wonderful classics. And I haven't heard of Edith Blyton. Is that right?
Yeah, The Naughtiest Girl, and then there's she was a very prolific writer. A Famous Five, Secret Seven, have you
Okay.
St. Clair's, Malrita's,
No,
they're all
yeah,
Enid
I
Blyton.
should, but I haven't. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. No, I think it's probably a more British thing.
Okay. Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, she was a British author in the 50s and 60s. Those were her most active years. So
Okay.
she was probably more popular here than in the US. So.
Okay. So of all of hers, what's your favorite? Tell me a little bit more about it since I haven't heard of.
Well, out of I love all her books, but I think out of them, the most special would be The Naughtiest Girl in School because that was like the first book I ever read.
Okay.
That wasn't a picture book, I mean.
Okay, it's a
So
picture book.
yeah, right until now, that's probably the most special to me
Okay.
about hot-tempered Elizabeth Allen
What's it about? What's it
who
about?
goes to a boarding school,
Okay.
and yeah, so it's a very sweet book
Okay.
about friendship
Cool.
and just settling down into school.
I love it.
In fact, J.K. Rowling mentioned Enid Blyton as one of her inspirations for
Oh,
Hogwarts, the boarding school setting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
didn't know that. That's
mhm.
really neat to know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is so exciting. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Ramya, for telling me about these and sharing just all these
Uh,
inspiring, beautiful figures and making them into accessible picture books for kids.
thanks for having me, Karen.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.